Since you can't come to my open studio, I'm bringing the studio to you. So for the month of March 2020, I'm the artist-curator in residence with the Griffin Art Projects, and today I'll be showing you some of the artworks that I've been working on, but also some of the research that I'm doing, working towards the curatorial project that I'll be presenting at the Griffin in January 2021. I'm an installation artist, and some of the works that I've done, most recently I've recreated the Chinese-Canadian artist studio from the 1930s, also historical Chinese-Canadian photo studios, opium dens, Chinese-Canadian restaurants, and other spaces of cultural encounters in the west of Chinese cultural sites. I wanted to demonstrate how our understanding of space, place, and history can come through the corporeal experience of embodying a particular space for a moment in time, and the materiality of the objects that we would find. In restaging and reframing the spatial and cultural forms of Chinese restaurants, curio shops, historical portrait studios, artist studios, and other sites of cultural encounters, I wanted to reveal their importance in producing a specific Chinese spatiality that would confront or even sometimes perpetuate myths and stereotypes. As well, I wanted to engage and problematize history, memory, and their representations. One way I see the installations and even my sculptures and the research that I'm doing as, my contributions, or a small contribution to expanding sort of the understanding of Chineseness and creating, in a way, a small archive of the history of Chinese in Canada. So at the Griffin, for the month that I'm here, my plan was to develop a research project that I would later present in January, and it would be a project that looks at the various depictions or representations of Chinatowns. So it could be the Chinatown in Vancouver, or also for example, in Montreal or Toronto, or other Chinatowns. In a way, it's sort of looking at the art history of this neighborhood. So some of the works that I'm looking at are a sketch by Emily Carr of a Chinese boy. Also, I'm hoping to find out more about Vera Weatherby's sketches and works that she may have done in the Chinatown in Vancouver. Other folks that I'm looking at are more in photography, so Fred Herzog or Jim Wong Chu. And I wanted to look at also how the changes in perceptions of a community might have varied throughout the decades. On this table, what we see are objects from a collection from a friend's family who live in Burnaby, and it's stuff from my friend's parents and grandparents. So it was really wonderful to see that that the family were generous in offering me these items for my research or for installations. So you can see this is an abacus, and it was from his grandfather, who brought it over from, I believe, Hong Kong. And ivory chopsticks. And each one of these, he made a short video with his father to explain what each of these items were, and I guess the stories behind them. And on this table, I've been working on a couple of things in between the research, or just kind of a break from the research. These are some vinyl cutouts that I'm working on for a group project, and this is the latest thing that I'm doing. Is I'm embossing a disposable cookie tray. These are photos that Julie J from Toronto was sharing with me. Of her parents were born in Vancouver, and her mom was known as the Chinese Shirley Temple. She was a child performer. And here are just some of the works I'm considering, for the exhibition that I'm working on with the Griffin. So these images are from the Chung collection at UBC. This is, I believe, is taken after the riots and the anti-Chinese riots in Vancouver, Chinatown. This is a terrible printout I have of the blueprints of the Wang Sang building in Chinatown, the oldest building there. Some images taken by Paul Yee of Chinatown, and I thought it would be interesting to kind of contrast Fred Herzog's photos of Chinatown with ones by Paul Yee and of Jim Wong Chu. I've been interested in working with collections for a number of years, ever since I did a residency with the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts in 2014, where I looked at their collection of Chinese objects, and it just made me think about I guess questions of who were the collectors, what they collected, and the reasons for that. And so over the years, I've been working with different collections, mostly public, but also on occasion for different installation projects, putting a call out to members of the community of whichever town or city that I'm showing at to bring in, for example, their own collection of chinoiserie. So at the Griffin, I'm interested to continue to do work that questions whose histories are told, and thinking about who are collectors and what are the collections. And when I say what are the collections, I'm thinking not just about collections of contemporary art or collections of historical artworks, but also, say, historical artifacts. So one of the collections that I'm hoping to do a lot more research into and to include items for the show at the Griffin are the Chung collection. So it started by Drs. Wallace Chung and Dr. Madeline Chung, who have hundreds and thousands, I think, of artifacts related to three streams. So one is Voyages of Discovery, the second one is the Canadian Pacific Railway, and the third that's important, I think, for me and my project is related to the Chinese Canadian or Chinese immigration to Canada and the settlement. So some of the questions I'm going to bring up with this project are kind of how to build upon, for example, the Chung collection, and so other works that I'm looking at, other collectors, I should say, that I'm in contact with at the moment are, for example, social historians who are going to lend me photographs of, for example, Yu Cho Chow's studio in Vancouver, who's the first Chinese photographer here, as well as collector of materials related to the supper clubs and entertainment life in Vancouver. So, of course, I'm specifically looking at the ones in Chinatown. I think very often it's the dominant narrative that gets to be told, and for the collections that I'm looking at, I wanted to, in a way, to counter those dominant narratives. It's like what collection is shown, who gets to be collected, and whose stories get to be told. So my first week, I was really fortunate. I was able to go down to Chinatown, just meet people there, and also do some archival research at UBC and meet some other scholars and curators, and then COVID hit. So I've been, it's like a lot of people, it's figuring out ways around not accessing resources, having meetings canceled because of the directives to practice social distancing. So it's been a really interesting time to be here. What that event was going to be was a type of Chinese restaurant hop around the North Vancouver Chinese restaurants, that I would lead a group of up to 20 participants in kind of visiting the different restaurants here, and that actually was a response to when the coronavirus first appeared and people were associating it with Chinese, and there's a lot of starting to be a lot of anti-Chinese behaviors and attacks. So it would be my small gesture towards like support and solidarity with the Chinese restaurants, because people were saying like, oh, you could get it from eating at a Chinese restaurant, and it's that age-old sort of fear of Chinese people and what they eat, and that you could get you could get sick from that. So anyways, that was one of the reasons I wanted to put on this event, and because of all the restrictions now on mobility and social distancing, the Griffin team and I developed an alternative to visiting the restaurants with the participants. Instead, we figured that actually we could perhaps use the modest event budget to offer complimentary meals to individuals in North Vancouver, meals from the Chinese restaurant that would be delivered, individuals who were feeling challenged by the situation, who are self-isolating or who find it difficult to make meals right now for themselves. So that's what's replaced the movable feast. Thanks for dropping by my studio. Stay safe, everyone, in this challenging time, and hope to see you in January 2021.